Good morning. Grace Spees here with the Farmers Branch Chamber of Commerce. We are the voice of business to government. Our objective is to continue to fight for our business community, especially small and medium-sized businesses, as we navigate these unprecedented times. Here in Dallas, the warning level was raised yesterday, so I'm here with House District 115 Representative candidate Karyn Borwnlee to specifically talk about her campaign platform as it pertains to economic recovery, leadership, and other topics. Good morning, Karyn. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
How are you this morning?
I'm great. I always look forward to talking with you, Grace. You're, as they call you, Amazing Grace. And it's always fun to talk with you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So let's get right down to business. How's campaigning going right now? Obviously, early voting just started 2 days ago. What kinds of things have you been doing? How are you feeling at this point in the campaign process?
Well, has it only been 2 days that we've had early voting? It seems like 2 months. It's been a busy time. We have people turning out to the polls like crazy, as you might imagine. I know you've seen the numbers, and it's been very busy here in Coppell, where I live. Lines wrapping around the building, and of course, the election clerks and judges are doing a great job of managing the election sites and making sure to have social distancing between people in line. So even out in the parking lot of town center out there, people are 6 feet apart. And I tell you, yesterday or Tuesday morning, rather, first thing at 7 o'clock, it was a rather odd feeling out there. It was just usually it's a little bit more jovial or something, but it's just very serious and everybody's being very careful, and that's a good thing. But it's wonderful to see that people are not afraid to go to the polls. They're wearing their masks, they're socially distancing, they're showing up, because it's so important that people use their right to vote and take that seriously. I mean, we do have the freedom in this country to vote. Not every country has that freedom, but it's also a responsibility to vote. With freedom comes responsibility. And so it's wonderful to see people turn out and make their views heard. So as far as I'm going, I'm just going. I think I'm running on adrenaline a lot. We're just working really, really hard, and I have amazing volunteers and great support, and a lot of support just from within the community. I'm not your typical politician. I'm not backed by big money, and I'm okay with that, because I really am not here to serve big money. I'm here to serve the people. And that's what drives me. I'm a public servant at heart. I was a public servant for, really my whole life, I think, off and on, but certainly the 18 years in public education where I served, and as a principal here in Coppell ISD for 11, 9 at the same campus. And so public service is just my heart. I love to do that. Solve problems, meet needs, try to make things better for people, love on people. It's just what I enjoy doing. So this is an extension of that. And I hope the campaign can move into actual public service, because campaigning is not necessarily public service. It's not my forte or my favorite part of it. I'm looking forward to getting through that necessary evil of campaigning in order to become an elected public servant. So I hope that comes about, and would love to have everybody's vote.
Very good. Yeah, I'm sure your Fitbit step count is getting quite up there with all the door knocking you've been doing.
Lots of meeting, lots of people, and meeting people in, amazing places. Had a great conversation yesterday with a young man at the post office, and who came up and knocked on my window and wanted to visit with me. So we had a good 15-minute conversation in the parking lot of the post office. You just never know where you're going to meet people, and I love to learn about people's lives and what they're doing with their lives. And he really values the opportunity that he has here to work hard and improve his life. And he takes that very seriously. And so it's great to visit with people and hear what makes them tick and what their values are.
Good. Well, let's jump right to, your campaign platform. One of our favorite questions to ask here is the chamber is, and as you know, many of our business owners don't necessarily live in Farmers Branch. They may live somewhere in your respective district or outside of it. So they may or may not get to vote for you, but they are impacted by the decisions you make. what do you feel, how will you support the business community and economic recovery efforts through the next legislative session?
Well, supporting the business community is really easy. I mean, it's a matter of just having good relationships with them. And I've enjoyed getting to know you and getting to know some of the people in the chamber. And I would look forward to continuing and expanding those relationships. And as I've told teachers before, and I would tell business owners the same thing, is that I would love to have town halls on a regular basis. I don't know, realistically, having never served, I don't know what my schedule will afford. So I don't want to make too many promises that maybe I can't keep, but I really want to be intentional to have as much as possible, have some really good town hall opportunities for different groups of people to come and share their concerns. How else would a public servant know what's important to somebody if they're not listening, and setting up those opportunities? So I would like to do that, and certainly want to represent the businesses in the legislation that I would advocate for and vote for. And I stand for personal responsibility, as I mentioned a minute ago, and the freedom to work and innovation that we have in this country to actually create businesses. Small businesses thrive. We have wonderful businesses here, and especially in Farmers Branch. I've really come to love Farmers Branch. I'm a Coppellite for 21 years, but I've really come to love Farmers Branch dearly. Carrollton too, and North Irving too. All of the whole area of the District 115 is just fabulous. But there are a lot of small businesses in Farmers Branch, and I've been really encouraged at the resiliency of some of the business owners. And not everybody has, survived. It's been really sad to see some businesses have to close. I would love to see if there's a way to bring some of those businesses back, and maybe help some of those that have lost their business, to try to help them get back into business once we're fully reopened. I would love to be able to do that. I'm concerned when laws are made that appear to benefit but don't really benefit people. So one thing that comes to mind is that I was visiting with one local owner here, and I won't say who, but a local owner of a longtime restaurant here in this area. And she had applied for a loan through the PPP program, and the interest rate on the loan and the payback schedule was going to be such that it was actually harder for her, more difficult than to just take money out of her own savings account in order to keep her people on board and to take care of her workers. And so this wonderful person, that's what she and her husband elected to do, was to actually take out of their own retirement in order to keep their employees on board and eating, rather than take something that was going to be really difficult, if not impossible, for her to pay back, not knowing what was going to come because of the way that was set up. So I really want to be involved in that process of looking at the details of how things are set up and looking at the consequences of things to make sure that when something is set up, that it is really best for business and that people can benefit from that. It's something that we need. If we don't have business in America, then we're in trouble, because that's what's made America so strong through the years, is the free market society that we live in. And so having our businesses strong, keeping them alive and well and profitable is just crucial. We have so many people right now that are out of work, and many people that could go back to work, but they've had a hard time doing that because of the kids. Fortunately, we're getting kids more and more back in school full time. I've had some ask me, is it safe? And you mentioned the risk level going up again. People are concerned about having their kids in school. If their kids aren't in school, well then, how can they go back to work? So there's a lot of things that need to be done. One of the things too, specifically, I don't know if you want to talk about legislation, if you want me to pause and you ask another question, but there's a lot of things on my heart to do in the next session. And hopefully those things will, promote a positive Texas economy. That's what we want.
Yes, I would love to dissect into that. I'm going to just comment real quickly. I've recently spoke with one of our bankers that's with the chamber, and he and I have been having conversations ongoing through the process, and he specifically was dealing with a lot of the PPP applications. And really, this man was reading through all the material coming out from all the different levels. And, there is this kind of question of what is forgiveness going to look like? And I think, again, when they rolled out the program at the beginning back in April, it sounded like a great idea to get us through a couple months. But when we look at, I don't know if anyone anticipated this, going on for this long. And, we were just getting to where we were reopening. The governor just released an order that they were, loosening the reopening, restrictions and allowing greater capacities at business. And then, yesterday evening, I saw that they raised it back to, stay home, stay safe. So it really does kind of make you wonder, like, how does this look the other side when we get to PPP loan forgiveness? And as you kind of mentioned, right, this all has a ripple effect into how it impacts parents, which are also employees or business owners, teachers, school districts. Really every facet of society is touched by business. We all have a neighbor, a son, a daughter who works probably somewhere, within the local area. And it's really important that we keep as many people employed, but that also requires the support for the business to be able to stay open. And some businesses are flourishing and are up higher than ever. But, a lot, especially the restaurants, the smaller businesses, the retail is hurting. So go ahead and dive into some of your comments that you would like to make on, legislation and any policy that you feel would be helpful, impactful.
Well, certainly the first and foremost thing is that we have to balance the budget. I mean, that's going to be the priority. I mean, that's just obviously that's the main role of the legislature is to do the budget. It's huge. It's a big part of what we do. We speaking in the future optimism tone, but that's a big part of the legislative body's responsibility. And so, prioritizing the infrastructure, transportation, education, criminal justice, things that are, really, it's hard to prioritize. Everything's important, but those things are really critical to keep our economy sound, to keep people going to work. So there's certain things that are certainly very important. We need to look at how we can make ends meet. And how we can, I always say, cut the fat. If there's fat that can be cut, this is a good time to do it. So we need to look at that, see where we can tighten our belts a little bit. But one of the big things that's on my heart and has been since maybe March, a long time, is the idea of the emergency and disaster declarations and what's really written in our state law right now. And I'm not here to criticize in any way our governor or anybody at any level, because this has been a very unprecedented time and difficult time to try to lead through. So I give all of my respect to everyone in a leadership position right now, and I'm grateful to them for serving. But I know that there has been, just listening to the people, I know that there's been great concern from some people that, on the one hand, some people wanted there to be tighter restrictions, during this pandemic, and forced shutdown and forced mask mandate and that kind of thing. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have people that feel like there shouldn't be any of those things in place at all, and we're free to do whatever we want to do. And so where is the happy medium there? And so I think that our leaders have tried really hard. And again, I try to give all credit and respect to the people who have been dealing with this, because it's been very difficult. But looking towards the future, to protect Texas and to make sure that our Texans feel that they have a voice in the process, I think it's really important that we look at the laws that are in place. And we may need to have it written down that we call a special session after 30 days or 60 days in the future of a situation like this, so that the legislators come in and have that opportunity to be the voice of the people and to help make some of these decisions. Because there have been a lot of things that have been made, and the legislators are still working. They're still, doing committees and things. But as far as coming together and actually voting on things and representing the people with their vote, that has not happened during this time. And we've had an emergency now since March, as I said. So what's that? April, May, June, July, August, September. Now we're in 7th month. 7 months of this. And so there are many people that feel that we need to look at the law and look at how we can clarify that. Also, I think clarifying the roles and the authority level that different levels have. So we had a lot of chaos when, and again, nobody's fault. I think it's a missing piece in our law where it's not clear. So we had the governor say one thing, we had our county judge say something else, and we had the mayors of the various towns saying different things. And here in District 115, we have quite a few mayors. So, there are a lot of different things that are going on and different mandates that are being said. You drive over into Tarrant County and it's different. You drive up into Collin County or Denton County and it's different. And so, what needs to be on the state level? What needs to be on the county level? Does anything need to be on the county level? Or does it need to be a difference between just the state and then whatever the governor says belongs to the mayors during a period of emergency power? And ultimately, it's the people's decision. And I think that we forget that a lot. We're a government of, by, and for the people. So it's not, whatever powers we have given to Governor Abbott or to Mayor Hutton Coppell or to Clay Jenkins, to anyone, those are powers that we have afforded them in the past. Now, we may not have even in our lifetime, but at some point, the people have written down or not written, failed to written down, but generally we have a lot of laws. So things have been written down and established, and the borders of their authority have been clarified in the law. And so the things that they operate under are written down and have been voted on. So it's a good time to look back at that and see how that can be improved and tightened up, because I have a feeling that moving forward in this day and age with the population growth and the technology that we have and these unfortunate, viruses and strange things that happen, we're going to have more of these kinds of things. I would hope that we don't, but we need to be prepared in case we do. And so if we do, then we want to make sure that our laws are very clear, that we have an established boundary, I think, for the legislators to come back together and vote in a special session, and also clarity on the roles of the different levels of government and who makes what decision. And so that they're not contradicting one another or they're not in conflict with one another. And people say, well, who do I listen to? And so it should be very clear for the benefit of the people. The people, it's not a time to politic, to get into corners, to be fussy and critical of one another. When we're in a crisis or emergency, we should be coming together and supporting one another and being very clear in our communication and very careful to do everything that we can to help the people. Because really at the heart of government, I think, is caring for people. It should be. At the heart of any good government is caring for people. And that's one of my signs. You'll see Karyn Cares, because I know Karyn gets a bad rap these days on Facebook, right? There's a lot of things said about Karyns, So just remember, I'm Karyn with a Y, okay? Why? Because I care. So Karyn Brownlee. I really believe that caring is very, very important piece, and it should be the heart of what we do in government or public service.
That's good. You really unpacked a lot there. And I think, a lot of people have commented to me of, wait, what's the order? What's the mandate? Which one do I follow? One of the ones that I continue to find interesting is you're not allowed to have gatherings of 10, but a business can be at an occupancy now of 75%. That just changed with the most recent governor order. But, prior to that, it was 50%. So it was like, so wait, can we meet at the country club at 50% capacity if there's 20 of us, but we're at the capacity level? It's kind of like, wait, which one is it? And it just does seem like a lot of, well, this, but not that. I thought it was interesting. It's like, okay, well, amusement parks are unrestricted, but, it's like, well, can we have a luncheon at a regular park? Because, parks aren't a business, but an amusement park is. And so I understand there is a lot of gray areas where I'm like, wait, which is it? Which applies to us as a chamber and us as our business community? It's just been interesting to navigate.
It has. And the question of, are you a bar or are you a restaurant? And if you're a bar that serves food, then you're exempt from the directives to the restaurant. And so some places can be open while others can't, but they're seemingly under the same place. So there's been a lot of confusion. Communication is always the most important thing that we can really pay attention to. We communicate by everything that we do and say. And I'm certainly not perfect at it by any means. Certainly during campaigning, I think I've not been perfect at it. But it is just the most important thing that we can do. And as public servants, I go back to my time as a school principal and as a teacher. It's just so important to make sure people understand one another. You have to, as Covey says, seek first to understand, then be understood. And so when we're trying to understand each other and we listen to one another, we can learn from one another. And then I think we can lead appropriately at that point. And, our leadership should be to lead people forward in what it is that they want to be led forward doing, and what we feel we see, what we see and feel needs to be done. Again, we're not a dictatorship, and we're not top down. And so as people, it's important to facilitate conversation between people, to listen to people, to determine what it is that people desire, and then help move forward in those directions. And all of those things, whether it's listening or coming together in common ground and finding out what those things are, all of those things take listening and conversation, discussion, questioning one another. All of that is communication. It's just so important to understand each other. And so then when something is implemented and you have a policy, then communicating that in a very careful way, very thorough way, making sure that everybody understands and that there's no contradictions in that. So we've certainly experienced a lot of contradictions this year and confusion this year, and it's to be expected. This is the first time we've gone through this. So again, I'm not criticizing. I don't want that to come across as a negative or critical point. It's just that I'm just looking at things pragmatically and how things were and what we need to do to go forward to make things better. That's the idea.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, right? I mean, we can all play sideline quarterback and see from, a different perspective, like, oh, maybe we could do this or that. But, I imagine, I actually can't imagine what it's like to be the governor, the president, somebody in a high level of authority having to take what information that they have and make the best decisions with it. And, especially there's just so much misinformation out there. Anybody can make a meme and put some stats on it and make it look credible.
Right.
And so I think, you really hit the nail on the head. It's a lot of one-on-one conversations and being thorough in the communication. I mean, I feel like this is probably my first, all of our first big rodeo in something like this, but, it seems for a while, politics have been pretty divisive for a while, for decades. But at the same time, I just am a believer that there has to be a path forward that is unifying, that does honor, the various people groups, the various points of views, and how do we come to, it's not just a happy medium and like a placating kind of way, but how do we really look at all the different aspects of the problems, the public safety and public health concerns that are very real, but also, the economic concerns. I feel like I see more people panhandling right now. I know I've sat with business owners who are between paying, their mortgage and paying their employees and them being able to pay their rent or mortgage. And so there's just this tension between all these different factors that I don't know if there is a one size fits all solution, but
well, there's usually not. And so you're right. I mean, we have to, it's not necessarily a happy medium, but I think it's looking at what's best for the most people. And none of us are going to have everything exactly the way we want it. And so there is a sense of, we have to come to consensus. And I think that's really important, as a leader. Leadership doesn't operate in a vacuum, and good leaders have to build consensus with other people. They have to build relationships with other people. They have to learn how to work with other people. And it can be really hard sometimes when you have a lot of leaders in the same room, but it's important to do that and to try to find consensus and to, as a legislative body, whether it's on the state level or the national level, to work across the aisle and not be resistant to that. We have, as you mentioned, the politicking and the divisiveness right now it's higher than ever. And we have a lot of divide between parties, and it's unfortunate. Although there are reasons, there are certain things that are very opposite between the two parties in certain areas and certain issues. But when it comes to serving the people, especially during time of emergency and disaster, it's really important at that time, especially to be together as much as possible to really try to find consensus and to find the best path forward to serve the most people. So I think that, looking at taking care of the government and clarifying some things, as I mentioned, looking at the law and making some clarity there. But I also think focusing on public education, I just have to say, that's so important to me, having been in public ed for 18 years. And when I say public ed, I don't necessarily mean public school districts, although I do mean public school districts. But it's whatever the public decides to do with their tax dollars that goes into the collective account to provide for the education of the next generation. We have agreed for many, many years that it's crucial that we provide for education for the next generation of Texans. And 94% of our students in Texas go to publicly funded schools. So our publicly funded schools right now include the traditional school district model that we grew up in. And then it also includes now the charter school model, because those are completely publicly funded. There's talk out there about potentially moving dollars towards other things. And I've been asked a lot of questions about that, of course. I just believe that, number one, it is the taxpayers' decision what we do. Right now, our Texas Constitution which was decided by the taxpayers and voted on, and has been amended many times. It says that we provide for public free schools. So that's what's been decided. So right now we provide free schooling for the public if they choose that. They could choose private schools, which promote the free market enterprise. They can choose to homeschool. There are things that they can choose. But we have these options right now with the traditional school district and the charter schools that they can choose. If the taxpayer wants to do something different with education money, then it may be that we need to look at having a statewide vote on an amendment to the Constitution to see if the money needs to be used in a different way. But currently, that's how I interpret it, that it says public free schools. And I know how important they are, because having spent 18 years in public ed as a teacher and then a principal, I mean, I could just tell you story after story of the lives that have been changed because of people who feel called to serve in public education, because it is a public service and they're not paid well enough. People who serve in public education, especially our teachers, are not paid well enough. We need more good teachers. It's just the most incredible profession. It's so rewarding and it's so important. It makes a humongous difference in the lives of children. How many people have we heard talk on TV, whether it's an athlete, a celebrity, a politician that's in office now in DC somewhere? We hear stories all the time of how their lives have been changed because of a public school teacher. And if it weren't for them, they wouldn't have had the hope, or they wouldn't have had the direction in order to know how to pursue what they pursued and what they have been able to achieve. So I fully support public schools. I want to keep our funding intact. Some changes were made last time. We need to make sure, as we're looking at the budget, that the funding remains strong and that we don't cut. I mean, if we're going to make cuts, I pray that they are not out of public education, because we need to keep that element strong. And I think that there are so many more things that we can do in the future to improve public education. One of them specifically related to businesses. I'd like to have a financial literacy course required in high school. We had this on, a bill was filed for this last session, but did not make it through. And I think it's really important that we look at teaching financial literacy in high school, because too many people graduate high school, don't even know how to balance a checkbook, because you don't have to anymore, because you just trust the computer and you trust the bank and you trust these numbers that come at you that they're correct. But do they even know for sure how to check and make sure that they're correct? We have so much corruption in the world. It's very important that people know how to protect themselves and make sure that their money is not being stolen from them through miscellaneous fees or whatever, overcharging for something. So people need to understand the basics of finance and the stock market and how to invest, because we want people to be prosperous. We want people to be prepared to open their own business and to be a private business owner. I'm endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Business. I'm very proud of that. They had the faith in me after learning about my views and my support of small business to endorse me. I appreciate that very much. It's important that we continue to educate our children and maybe provide vocational education as well for some. I'm all in favor of that. We want to make sure that our next generation are educated and prepared to be business owners, skilled workers, go to college if that's their aptability, but every student needs to be able to succeed in their own way in Texas.
You really unpacked a lot there.
I
And
do that a lot. I'm sorry.
that's totally fine. I was just going to make a comment. It's one thing that I appreciate about the Farmers Branch Chamber, long before my leadership, I think for several decades, we have our own education foundation, and we've had a very close tie to the school district, because we understand within our business community that those are our future employees and our future leaders. And so often I see posts on Facebook, what course would you add to, the high school curriculum? And there is a lot on financial literacy, and also on, entrepreneurial and professional skills and things like that, so that we can more quickly assimilate them from high school into meaningful work that they can earn a reasonable standard of living, obviously for their age, for their experience level, but how do we bridge that gap? And when you look at, the world as a whole, one of the biggest difference in prosperity between third world nations and first world, and specifically, the United States, is our education and literacy levels. Mm-hmm. And so there seems to be a direct correlation between having good education systems and the prosperity of a nation. And mm-hmm. so I definitely agree that, and hopefully all people agree that, having good school systems is important, because those are our future, again, leaders, government officials, as well as teachers and lawyers and doctors, and right, all the things, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they're employees, we do want to be able to feed into those programs and what's being, taught to children, so that, and I've had several conversations with companies like Atmos Energy specifically. She says, we need a steady pool of talent. And right. As a chamber, we've been looking at, building a workforce development program in partnership with the college and corporations, so that we can bridge that gap. Not everybody can go and get a 4-year degree, or, mm-hmm. How can we get them at least a course or a certification in QuickBooks or accounting, so that they're more immediately able to have, again, a meaningful level of work. And then they can continue to take classes and kind of, ping pong back and forth between, getting education, but still being able to work, and not just, okay, here's 4 years, now you work, mm-hmm. and bringing those more into a place of parity. Because respectfully, I mean, I had the greatest, most fun humanities teacher at community college, but I'm not sure that I'm using anything from my humanities course, today. I think that's good to be well-rounded. My mom, is definitely an arts and culture kind of person, and sent me to a charter school that was, an art school where we did dance and visual arts, theater, music classes. But, again, what's relevant? How do we better equip them more quickly, so that, for those who can't have that experience or don't have the funds, how do we not make them go into debt when they're 18 years old in order to get an education? Because that's just too young. And that goes back to the financial literacy. So there's just so many of these components that, again, are so integrated: our government, our school system, our business community. So that's definitely appreciated that those things are important to you, to any candidate, right?
Well, absolutely. If we don't support our public schools, then we're not supporting the business environment in the future, because that is where they're prepared. And so I commend you for wanting to work with the community on workforce development and with the colleges, because that's very important. And as a principal, I did a business partner situation arrangement with several businesses in the area, where we had partners come in and work with our kids. And this is on the elementary level, but to expose them to different jobs that were out there, and to just be mentors to them and encouragers to them. So it's a very important thing that we do, is to prepare our kids for the future. And then once they become, in business, then we certainly want to support them in every way that we can, by empowering them and giving business owners the freedom to run their business as they see fit, and to not overregulate. We have a bad problem at times, not in our state as much as others, but for state overreach. So we certainly don't want to burden our private business owners with too many regulations, but just enough to maintain order. We have to have taxation. We have to have some regulations to maintain order, but there's a reasonable amount, and then we need to allow people the freedom to run their businesses as they see fit. So it would be my honor to support our business owners here, to communicate with them, build relationships with them, and certainly still support our public schools as well. And so I look forward to hopefully that opportunity in the future.
Thank you for your time today, Karyn. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, as I mentioned, my name is Karyn, but it's Karyn with a Y. Why? Because I care. And so it's Karyn Borwnlee, Brown like the color, LEE.com. And you can just connect in a zillion ways there. So you can sign up for a newsletter, email me, phone call me, follow me on every social media you can imagine. Facebook is the one that has the most information, though. And so please do check out my website, Karyn, Karyn, Brownlee.com. I would love to connect with you all. It's very important to connect with people, because this is about being a people's representative. That's what the representative should be, not a representative of big money or any kind of particular partisan group, but to be a representative of the people. So thank you for your time with me and giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Karyn. And thank you all for joining us. We cannot stress enough how important it is for you to get out there and vote. Vote for your local, your city, your county, your state, the national candidates. If you need any information on where polling locations are open for early voting, you can go to votetexas.gov. And as always, we're here as the Chamber of Commerce to be a liaison, to help you get in contact with your local officials, write your senator, write your governor, write these people. I know it sometimes seems like, well, what does my voice matter? What does my letter matter? And it does. It does in a time like this. So we will continue to host our political candidates up until the election. And even afterwards, we will continue to keep these open conversations and dialogue happening as a representative of the business community. So you can find more information on farmersbranchchamber.org. You can also follow us on Facebook. So thank you for your time today, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon.